What's up, Mortgage Coach community? I am sitting down with the one and only Jason Mitchell, America's #1 B2B real estate platform. Is that a fair way to describe what you do?
I've been using platform lately all the time because, we're not really a broker. I mean, we're a brokerage, but we're really a platform of services, right? So yeah, I like that. That's what I've been using.
B2B real estate platform. All right. And he's also known as the #1 realtor in America. He's doing a lot of innovative things. The last time we talked, he shared some ideas on how to take his business model and how a loan officer and a realtor could do a mini version of that in their local cities. Guys, I'll put a link down below to it, but it was pure gold. So Jason, first of all, how's business going? Where do you think you're going to end up with your numbers for the year?
Last month was our record. We ended up with 400. And actually, I said this on the Modern Real Estate Summit, and I watched. I was texting you guys as it was going on. I think that was the best. I thought the first one was great. I thought the second one was the best day of content for the price that anybody. And even if you're a lender, you should still at least pick out 2 or 3 people that you want to hear from on that, and go. What is it, like $99 or something ridiculously low? For that amount of content for 8 hours of the best of the best. I literally thought that was the best day of real estate for the price that anybody could get. I thought the first one was amazing. I thought the second one even topped it. So make sure like everybody should go do that for sure. But in there, it was because I recorded on October 30th, and we ended up at 482 deals in October for 231 million. It was records on both fronts for us. So that was a really good month.
That is extraordinary. And do you mind if we create some micro content out of that little plug you just gave?
Sure.
The best day of real estate content for the money you've ever seen. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you very much.
It's true. It was awesome. I loved it. I was giving Seth a bunch of crap during it too. It was kind of funny, but
it really was extraordinary. I mean, Steve helped us put together an amazing roster of leaders, and then leaders like you really created exceptional presentations that have lots of value for mortgage and real estate. Well, by the way, I know we've got some hot topics, but one of the things we're trying to have the Mortgage Coach community do, and a lot of people are already doing it. Like, we got the idea from the market, is they have the 1-year pass. Well, there's the whole 7-hour event in one viewing, but you can also, each session is set aside. So loan officers could have like a 1-hour lunch and learn or a 2-hour lunch and learn, and they could create their own custom show, just pick the presentations that they like the best. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that would be a good move for lenders?
Yeah, that would be incredible. I mean, look, I always look at it as what's the time commitment and what can it hurt? So if you have a lot of help supporting you and it's just a little bit of time to create content and push it out there, then there's value to that. Now, and I think that's where the support comes into play, because doing that stuff on your own, it goes to like projects and tasks, right? Like, yes, you want to do that, but it'll always get shuffled towards the bottom because there's a lot of work to be done. Whereas if you can utilize that platform, I think it'd be incredible.
Yeah, no, and it always impresses me. Here you are, one of the most successful, which means one of the busiest real estate professionals in the country, but yet you're finding time to get better, to learn and train. How often do you and your team train, and get better? I know it's weekly, but
weekly. Yeah, weekly. It depends. So we have partnership trainings. So getting educated and up to speed on what our partners' expectations are, sales approach. And that's specific partner training. That's once a quarter. We have our Coaches Corner, which consists of myself, James Wexler, who's the #1 agent in Arizona, Tony Giordano, Renee Rodriguez, great friend of yours. They all take part in our monthly JMG Coaches Corner, which we provide to our agents at no cost, just for being part of our platform, our brokerage. And they have some unbelievable content in there every single month. And so we're constantly training and coaching. It's important. And then we have different products too. Like, we have our Blueprint program, which is for new agents coming on board. So we can help train them, get them, going in the field. So there's a lot of resources at JMG.
Yeah. And so guys, if you just jumped in live, this is America's #1 real estate agent and the biggest B2B platform in the country. How much in total volume you think you'll do for this year when we're all said and done?
I think we'll hit that 2.4, 2.5. You know, our rolling 12 months puts us right at 2.9 billion. But I think for the year, we'll wrap up because we've grown a lot this year. I think we'll wrap up this year around 2.3, 2.4 billion. But what's interesting is that we went from in January receiving about 2,700 referrals a month to we're getting about 4,500 referrals a month. So we almost doubled our referral volume. And these are referrals, right? This isn't leads. Like these are all referrals. We don't pay for any of it. These are from our national partners that provide us with opportunity to service their clients. So next year, I think we could hit 75,000, 80,000 referrals, which we should do. If that's the case, we should do 9,500 transactions next year.
And that would be over 3 billion, right?
Yeah. That should be like, if I had to take a guess at that amount of referrals, we should hit somewhere around 3.8 to 3.9 billion.
That's extraordinary. Well, congratulations, my friend. Well, let's talk about two things. You know, we scheduled this because I saw a little rant you did on Facebook Live, or I don't know if it was Instagram Live, but social media live. And you were talking about how this inventory shortage, like, hey guys, you shouldn't be mad at the iBuyers in Zillow and Open Door. It's, you know, where the challenge is all the institutional buyers that are buying and holding. You know, like they're buying and they're not putting it back on the market.
Yeah.
Let's do that second, because since that happened, we had this Zillow news, and I don't know what that means to the iBuyer space in its entirety, but what's your take on that? And knowing the mortgage coach community and the leadership role that you have right now, what advice do you have for loan officers in the mortgage coach community, and any perspectives you have on this recent shift by Zillow?
Well, you know, on that, my stance was more towards the to the real estate side of things, in the sense that, you know, that day of the announcement, which I knew was coming, but on the day of the announcement, there were so many agents on social media like cheering and saying like, there goes Zillow, or like so many agents acting as if they won something. And I just looked at that and I thought, how short-sighted. Number one, a lot of people lost their jobs. Number two, you didn't win anything. You know, it'd been a different story if Open Door, OfferPad, Knock, Easy Knock, and Zillow announced at the same time, we're all getting out of the business. Okay, now you have less competition. But just because Zillow offers leads, all that does, it's going to empower Open Door and OfferPad to double up on the business, and everybody else that's in the space too. So agents didn't win anything. And to me, I look at it as, if you're concerned about Zillow and now cheering that they're out of the business because you may have lost a listing or two to them and they took an instant offer, you're in the wrong space, man. Because what I would look at is, if that was something that you lost to, it's how do you get better internally? What I always say is, if you can't beat them, join them. And so to partner with these iBuyers in your listing presentation as part of consumer choice and option. I have a traditional side, you'll make more money. It's not an immediate offer, but you'll make more money. You got me full service. I have an iBuyer that can come in, an iBuyer partner that can come in, buy it from you right away. I have another partner that can allow you to stay back for 6 months and rent your home while we find another home out there. Like, if you come to the table with solutions instead of just the same old song and dance that agents have been doing for 40 years. Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I specialize in 85258 on my average price on market and days on market, like all that garbage. Like, that's old school stuff. It's old school. Like, you show up to your listing presentation and it's just about what you can do locally, traditionally, your CMAs, your comps. Everyone else has that same stuff too. But when you come to the table with solutions that, hey, look, if that interests you, we are facilitators of a transaction. That's our job. So if I can facilitate this transaction and get paid for it, it's better than losing the transaction in its entirety. Oh, and if you're buying a home and I don't get to facilitate this side, odds are I'm not going to be able to help you buy a home either. So it's just being smart about your presentation and understanding that people are bringing solutions to the table, yet they look at them as competitors, and that they're squeezing agents out of the market and they're responsible for commission compression. And no, they're not. No, they're not. Consumers are just smarter, number one. And number two, why not partner with these groups? That's what we do. We find ways to say, look, how can we be of value to you? So I don't know. I mean, it's just ignorant to me that people celebrate someone's downfall. And I look at it as, hey, Zillow had a thought. They acted on it. They spent a ton of money on it. They went for it. It didn't work out for them. You got to respect that. But Zillow isn't going anywhere. I lost you, Dave.
Yeah, they definitely made a pivot, and it was a bold move. It hasn't worked out, but they've made a pivot. You know, our advice to the mortgage coach community last Friday, we did a whole call around this, and you know, first and foremost, don't be negative on social media. I don't think that's a good leadership brand.
Agreed.
You know, and then also I think it's important to not be white noise. Like, you know, a lot of the content I saw was just repeating what's in the news. You know, X 25% of sales force, $500 million in losses. You know, come to it with a hyper local perspective. I saw Kelly Zillow did a video, and I really liked it because she called out her local market. She said, hey, in our market, this means X to you. So she made a hyper local perspective. And then to me, it's all about bringing solutions. You know, like, okay, what does that mean to you as a homeowner? And if you're a mortgage professional, you're creating content, what does that mean to you as a realtor? And I'm really going to save my advice for the tail end of this, because we're going to go into another topic. And I think the advice I'm going to have, it's going to be the same for both, whether it's the Zillow news or the bigger issue. And I would love for you to share with the mortgage coach community your thoughts on just the inventory crisis, one of the biggest reasons that is happening. And then let's riff around solutions. You know, what can local providers do to help solve the inventory crisis in America?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've been on a mission this year. I can't tell you how many podcasts and shows that I've been on, because our company, JMG, the Jason Mitchell Group, we are not a luxury brand. We are a brand for the normal consumer, the average consumer, the blue collar person, because a lot of our partners are mortgage lenders. So our average purchase price is $446,000 this year. And we also service more veterans than any other real estate group in the country as well, too, given our partnership with Veterans United. And it's so tough watching these homeowners not be able to secure home ownership, even though they qualify, because every home has 4, 5, 6, 7 offers on them, and they can't compete. And the reason they can't compete is because there's no inventory out there. So any good home has multiple offers. And if you're a veteran putting 0 down, sellers are afraid to take your offer. And if you're a low down payment borrower, sellers are afraid to take your offer. In fact, I've seen so many cases to where a seller could have, and think about this, a seller could have actually made more money on their home by taking this person's offer, but was afraid that their home would not appraise. So they took the cash or the high down payment borrower because they knew they could come up with the difference from the appraisal gap. But they were afraid on the low down payment or no down payment borrower because they knew that if the home did not appraise, they couldn't come up with the gap. And they would then have to reintroduce that home back to the market. And at that time, maybe the couple buyers that they had lined up on the table were gone. So they actually took less money to have a more secure buyer. And that's not fair. And I get really passionate about this because of how I grew up and where I'm from in Detroit, and knowing that if you do not have home ownership to build wealth, and you are a middle-class worker, if you are a below middle-class worker, home ownership is the only way in this country to gain wealth, because you don't have enough money to make it in the stock market over time. Because even if you invest, let's say you make $60K a year after taxes, after whatever, you're basically check to check, right? Let's say you make $80K a year. You're still kind of check to check if you got a $2,000 a month rent payment or a $1,500 rent payment. So it's hard to save money, right? And if it's hard to save money, the stock market is only based on the value of what's created in the market. So if you only put 5 to 10 grand a year away in the market, it takes a long time to have any type of wealth whatsoever, right? Home ownership is different. That's why Dave Ramsey is so wrong. It's like, I feel like he says the stuff that he says because he just wants to be a contrarian. But he says, you know, you got to pay off your debt first before you look to home ownership, or have basically be debt free, which is garbage. But here's what these people have missed out on the past couple of years. As an example, the average home has appreciated, your average home in the past 2 years has appreciated over 32%. So if I bought a $400,000 home, I made over 100 grand on my house in the past 2 years. Well, guess what? If those people weren't getting kicked around, the veterans out there, the low income housing, people like that have just been totally getting kicked around, low down payment borrowers. I still qualify, but somebody beat me to the punch time and time again. They missed out on 100,000 in equity. Do you know what $100,000 in equity does to people in that position? It allows them to do things like have a cash out so they can pay for their kids' college, right? It allows them to have wealth. So for the future, they're set up. But when they continue to get pushed out of the marketplace, guess what else happens? They have to rent for a year. And now they're throwing away money in rent. They're not having principal pay down. They're not seeing appreciation. They're not having a tax deduction. We did a calculation and I introduced it to my team. The person that has a $2,000 rent payment, we call it the cost of waiting scenario, and it equates to this. But a $400,000 purchase for somebody that's paying $2,000 a month in rent, if they're looking to buy now at a $400,000 purchase and they choose to rent for a continued year rather than buy at 8% appreciation, given all the benefits of home ownership, they miss out on $77,000. Now that's net. So if you take away what I got to make to bring home 77, I got to make 120 to bring home 77. So we pegged them at 120 grand income, this couple. So essentially you worked for free. And it's the same thing that happens with what's going on with the lack of inventory right now. And the problem with the lack of inventory right now has to do with one simple fact. These massive PE firms that are going out there and scooping up all these single family homes are now monopolizing the market because they don't care what they pay for the house. The only thing they care about is yield. And rents are up 19% in the past 12 months. So while rents continue to skyrocket, these PE firms, the Invitation Homes, Colony, Blackstone, everybody, right? They're making more and more and more on their yield because they don't care what they pay for the price of the home. They're going to hold that home forever. And when you hold a home forever, you don't introduce it back into the market, which leads to higher appreciation, meaning a higher cost of home ownership, which also leads to higher rents. And so they're knocking people out of the market. It's not the iBuyers. The iBuyers are flippers. Flippers actually help the market because they improve homes before introducing it to the market, in which case an end user may not have the cash to do carpet, flooring, cabinets, whatever. But they don't hoard housing. PE hoards housing. And these people that are hoarding housing is absolutely destroying the marketplace for middle class and lower middle class borrowers that need home ownership in order to accumulate wealth throughout their life. And it will be a systemic problem when these would-be home buyers have to be, think about this. How much would this suck, Dave? You can now afford to buy a home, but now you can't. So you've taken the path, you know your lease is up in 3 months. Now I'm going to go shopping. You've made multiple offers on homes. You got to live somewhere. So now I'm forced to sign a lease again, which I don't want to, but I have to have a roof over my head. So now I'm forced to rent for another 12 months. During that 12 months, the housing market appreciated 15%. So it now knocked me out of the area that I wanted to live in. Oh, and by the way, my rents were also up 20%, which now means I can't even afford to rent where I have lived for the past 5-6 years. So now I got to uproot my kids so they can go to different schools because I can't afford to live in the community that I've been living in my entire life. This is what happens when you have rents that are skyrocketing and home prices that are appreciating so much, and you can't provide home ownership to the middle class and the lower middle class. Is now they're forced to go on outskirts and outskirts and outskirts while also not being able to accumulate wealth at the same time. It's a massive problem that we have, and we have to find solution to this.
So let's, I think the problem is pretty clear to everyone. And I doubt if there's a lot of debate on what the problem is. It's like, what are the solutions? And let's try to net this out in the next 10 minutes.
Yep.
And you feel free to just kind of randomly go down, and then let's try to come out with some very specific solutions that empowers every mortgage professional and real estate agent in America. And I've got a few of my own, but why don't you start the list, and then let's just go back and forth here.
Well, I want to start with legislation because I think this has to be legislated, and we can talk about what local loan officers and real estate professionals can do. But I have a theory of this. You want to play the game, no problem, but you got to pay to play. And I equate it to the luxury tax in sports. If the New York Yankees want to go out there and get the 3 best starting pitchers in the league, and bring in the best hitters in the league, no problem. They do it every year, but they got to pay for that because it creates an unfair advantage against teams like the Kansas City Royals and, teams that are small market teams that don't have, the Oakland A's that don't have a cap. So the Yankees can play the game, but you got to pay to play the game. So my theory would be this: if you're going to hoard houses and take away from home ownership from would-be consumers that need home ownership, then there should be penalties with that based on the tier of properties that you own. So let's say you own 2,500 to 5,000 homes in your portfolio. There's a tax for that. 5,000 to 10,000, there's a tax. 10,000 to 25, there's a tax. 25 to 50 is a higher one. 50,000 and greater is the highest one, or 100,000 and greater is the highest one. 0.5%, percent and a half, 2%, 2.5%, 3%, something along those lines. And you look to tax them, and we can take that money, that tax money, and we can use it when it comes to lending services to bridge gaps of appraisals. We can use it for veteran home ownership. We can use it for homeless, but we can use that money for the good in housing that we collect on this tax revenue by saying, if you guys that have an unfair advantage against the small guy, if you guys want to play the game, no problem, but you're going to be taxed on it. And on the flip side of that, we can also reward them. And what I mean by that is, if you off a certain percentage of your portfolio to the marketplace year over year, we'll actually incentivize you to do so. Because the economy has a better gain over an end user consumer in a home than a tenant or than a landlord. And that's because landlords do bare minimum effort to make sure the home's livable, but they don't want the best landscaping. They don't want the best cabinets. They don't want the best granite. They don't want the best whatever. But an end user ultimately does. So they create more money into the economy as an end user than a landlord does. So if we look to incentivize these PE firms to say, hey, look, if you off, say, 10% of your portfolio a year, we're going to actually give you a tax benefit to do so, because we know that you are creating more homeowners. And as long as you sell to an end user, then you are creating better home ownership situations for Americans out there. And that's a good thing for everybody. So we can tax them up front and then reward them on the back end if they choose to off a certain amount of their portfolio per year. And a lot of these groups would look at these numbers and say, that makes sense to me. And they would start churning their inventory instead of hoarding their inventory.
So what do you think the chances are that that kind of legislation is going to happen?
I think it's almost nil, because you got so much money behind these PE groups to say, look, and they try to state their case, they're doing something good. No, they're not. They're not. Like, they're just massive landlords that want yield, that keep driving rental prices up through the roof and hoarding houses, which is driving builders cannot build our way out of this right now. It's too hard and it's too long of a process, right? Like, you got to get permits. You got to, to build a community takes a lot of time. And to me, if we passed legislation that made sense, like this specific scenario, then we could introduce tens of thousands of homes to the market center quickly. But it's owned by lobbyists and it's owned by groups in DC that are going to fight logical solutions to housing. But the illogical solution is to have this continue, because I'm telling you, the systemic effect of 20 years of having people have to become perpetual renters, even though they love home ownership but now can't afford it, is off the charts systemic in terms of the inability for them to create wealth for the future of their family and for the future of themselves to retire. You're going to see people having to stay at work longer, which then means, guess what? Social Security now gets pushed back another 3, 4, 5 years, right? Like, it is across the board. And no one's thinking about it. They're just like, oh, housing's going up. That's cool because I own a house. It's not cool, because you still have to live somewhere. So when you sell your house, you're just going to pay more. Like, people are celebrating their wins in equity. If you're not a downsizer, like I look at Dave, your family, you're the one scenario and people in your demographic that could benefit, because your kids are out of the house, right? And you're moving into a different phase of your life where you can downsize, take your cash and downsize. But most people are in a position of first-time home ownership and move up buyers in this country. And they're being cheated by the system right now, because they can't even get a mortgage that they could qualify for because they can't find a home.
So yeah, there's no doubt what you're saying makes sense. At least in my mind, it does. Let's talk about some things that we could just do in our local market to help families, be in the right home, whether that's a move up or move down? And what are some things we can do to help agents get listings? And I've just been a big fan. Well, I've been a big believer that the way most loan officers present, you call it the mortgage strategy. Let's say it's a move up buyer. The way they show the numbers to a move up buyer, it's confusing and they're not clear. But if more loan officers are using Mortgage Coach, giving families either a move up or a move down analysis, giving families that are renting a rent versus own analysis, if there was more clarity in the minds of more consumers, there would be more inventory moving, and there would be more people getting into the right homes with the right strategies.
I think it's actually even better than that, because what the Mortgage Coach does that helps is it paints the picture of stay the course. And that's what agents and lenders need to be both on the same page to the consumer, that you might not get the first one, you might not get the second one, and it's not going to be the perfect home. But right now, the goal is to buy a home. So don't look and don't try to find that perfect property out there. It may not exist. And when it does, you may not even be able to buy it. Let's just get you into a home. Number one, that's what's critical. But number two, stay the course. And when you start showing numbers that are so impactful, like what Mortgage Coach can do, to say, look, you rent here, you buy here. This is the difference in 12 months and in 24 months. Are you going to stay the course with me or not? Meaning, don't get frustrated. Don't get buyer exhaustion. Don't give up. We will get you a home. Hopefully it's the first one, if not the second, but it may be the third or fourth. And I don't want you to get frustrated. I want you to stay with me so we can buy a home, because this is the difference. What Mortgage Coach is showing you, this is the difference in your life by staying the course or giving up. I won't give up on you. You don't give up on me. That's what I think the pitch is.
So you totally align with one of the biggest things that loan officers and mortgage professionals can do is provide more clarity, more data, more transparency. I just want to, you've seen this before. This is the Mortgage Coach rent versus own analysis, but I just want to connect it to this conversation because enough loan officers aren't doing this. When you have a renter, showing them what rent looks like and showing in different purchase prices, like different homes that they could buy, showing it to them monthly, what is the actual net difference, making sure they understand it graphically, and then showing it over time. Like look what rent looks like over 60 months, and look what rent versus home ownership looks like over 10 years. From a net worth perspective. Guys, it's never been more important that we're bringing this type of clarity to families, and not just when it comes to renters, to move up buyers. Like I am on this mission to get realtors to do CMAs, more CMAs. Let's bring more clarity to more families around what your home is worth. And then let's partner with the agent and tell me what you think about this strategy. Let's partner with the realtor loan officer, for the loan officer showing what move up looks like. Like, hey, you could move up, and in this particular case, it's actually in your market. This is a Chandler, Arizona property where you can stay in your property, you can move up, get an extra bedroom, and they could have refied. They could have got an extra bedroom in a better school district for $507 more a month. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but like this family had equity, and most people have equity now. If you've been in a home for more than a year or two, or 3 or 4, you've got a lot of equity. And so they could have actually bought this new home, non-contingent, because they qualified for 5% down. They could have taken that equity, prepaid the mortgage. This is probably what Dave Ramsey would have told them to do.
Yeah.
And then they could have recasted their payment and actually got the lifestyle with the lower payment. Now, this is what Rick Edelman, a more aggressive financial planner, would have said. Well, hey, why don't you buy that dream home? Who cares if your payment is $500 or more? Why don't you put that money in the market working for you? It's 6%. And look, the move up is almost $400,000 more in net worth in 15 years. You've got the liquidity and you get the dream home. And of course, an agent gets the listing. What are your thoughts on that? Like, let's get more. We need to do more CMAs. We need to.
I think it's
to partner.
I think it's pure clarity. Like, simple solution. What are your goals? My goal is this, that, and the other thing. Okay, great. Right now you're renting, or right now you want to move up. These are the scenarios that are laying forth to you right now. And I also think that mortgage coach could be utilized too by saying, now, here's the key component that is the unknown. What if rates go up 100 basis points in the next 6 months while you're renting? What if they go up 150 basis points over the next year while you're renting? Even 75. You're going to be in your home for the next 10, 15 years. Do you know what that does to you in terms of the amount of money you will unnecessarily spend instead of going to sign that rental agreement or renewing your lease because you feel as though it's too hard to find a home and staying the course? But we don't. We need to be educating people because that's our job, both lenders and agents. They're afraid to step up to the plate and say, no, you're wrong. Why are you doing that? You know how many more people listen to you and say, actually, you're wrong, and I need you to listen to me. If you would just say, listen, I need you to hear me out as to why this is not a good decision. Because we need to be telling them things like this. Instead, the consumer controls the discussion. We're gonna wait for another 12 months on a lease, and we'll call you next year. They won't. We'll call you next year, and we just need to settle down. We're just too overloaded right now with all this stuff. No problem. I completely understand, and I'm here for you. Call me. And that is such a garbage discussion because you shouldn't understand. No, actually, I don't understand, and I know you're exhausted. Hell, I'm exhausted too. Going out on 3 tours, submitting 3 offers and not getting them all, like that's a lot of work on my part, but I'm doing it for you. Yeah, I do earn a commission, but at the same time, I have plenty of clients I can earn a commission on. I'm doing this because if you don't buy a home now, what happens in the next 12 to 24 months could be detrimental to you. And then they start to listen.
So you really like the cost of waiting. By any chance, on the Modern Real Estate Summit last week, did you see Shayla Gifford's presentation?
I did not.
Okay, she shared this cost awaiting analysis where she actually shows the buyer that if you would have bought this home in July of 2000, this is what your monthly payment would have been. This is what rates were. Now they've gone up. It's July of 2021. This is what your monthly payment is. And what do you think is going to happen a year from now? And so she's showing kind of like the rear view mirror.
Yep.
And the forward view mirror. And she's showing this total cost and what this means to you. And look at this. I mean, it's a significant amount of money. And so.
But that's what people got to do. Instead they wait on discussion. They wait. You know what, David, this is crazy. If I had that, if agents actually use that product and said, hey, Mr. Client, I need you to hop on a Zoom call or I can come over. What do you prefer? Don't even give them a choice. Which one do you want? I'll hop on a Zoom. Great. Let me show you this. But instead, what do? They just text. Oh, that's too bad. Well, I'll be here when you need me. No. They don't even pick up the phone. Like, how is a consumer going to understand what you're saying through a text? How? They need to see it.
They need to see the numbers. And so it sounds like, Jason, you're in favor. When we look at all the different mortgage coach presentations, the rent versus own, the cost of waiting, and the move up, and you probably like them in that order, because
yes, I do.
Rent versus own is bringing renters into home ownership, which is how people create wealth in America, or it's the number one way. And then the cost of waiting creates urgency. So at least people are moving and they're not getting fatigued. And now the move up is kind of a mixed bag because we're getting a listing, but we need to replace it. It's not really solving.
Well, the way that I'll give you a real world example. Like a year and a half ago, I knew I overpaid for my new house. I knew I did. At least I thought I did. Turns out I didn't, right? So the guy that sells the most houses in America was wrong even on his house, right? Like, don't try to predict the market, okay? Because you can't. I would have never thought the market did what it did over the past year and a half. But I didn't care at the time because I got such a great interest rate and I knew at some point I had to move. And so I didn't really care about what I paid for the home because I planned on being here for a long time. And instead of waiting on rates going up 100 to 150 bips or whatever, I said, I'll bite the bullet. I'll pay a little bit more than fair market, but at least I'm locked in for the next 30 years at this rate, right? And guess what? I got lucky because the market exploded. So it goes to show you, you can't predict the market. But the point is, whether the market goes down or the market goes up, you're locked in at this rate for the rest of your life, while your rents every year for the past 22 years, rents have increased. So you tell me what you want to do. Because today rents at 2,000, in 3 years, it's 2,600, it's 2,700. You can't even live in this community anymore. But if you buy a home and you stay the course, your mortgage payment, 1,700 with an interest deduction and a principal pay down and the potential for appreciation. But you know what? You can say all this stuff you want until you show them something that is very crystal clear, like you have, it won't resonate. You got to show them the numbers.
So guys, we got to wrap this up. I got to let Jason get going. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really appreciate how much time you've committed to the community. Takeaways from this, guys: help your agents get out there and do more CMAs. Use the content from the Modern Real Estate Summit to put together your own custom meetings. And it could just be one. It doesn't need to be an hour or 2 hours. It could be a 15-minute, lunch and learn. Well, not 15 minutes, but 30, 45 minutes. All of the content in the Modern Real Estate Summit is less than 15 minutes. Well, except for Jason, you went a little over.
Don't even start.
You heard Todd call you out, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Anyways, so most of them were under 15 minutes. But guys, and make sure that you're partnering with your agents to either do a move up analysis, if that's what's relevant, to do a rent versus own, if that's what's relevant. And everybody needs a cost of waiting, especially when they're in that counter offer scenario and they're like, oh, should I pay more or should I wait?
That's right. What's the difference? Like, guys, over 10 grand, we're not, and that's the thing, is we're not losing this house over 10 grand, guys. And this is why it's not happening. Here's the after effect of that.
And Sean Herrero did a great presentation on that. Like what's $10,000 or $20,000 in purchase price really matter, and he talked about how he focuses on the monthly payment, not the price, but what's that going to cost you per month. So make sure you listen to those. All of those videos are in our YouTube channel. So I just want to call that out real quick. I'll put a link down below. We've got this playlist called the Mortgage Coach Agent Advantage playlist. All of these videos are mortgage coaches. They're talking to realtors about mortgage strategies. And this one, Denise, this first one, which it's only been in there 11 days and it's almost got 2,000 views. It's how Denise is blowing the minds of realtors with Mortgage Coach. So guys, those are all less than 5 minutes. Check them out. Jason, if people want to learn more about you, they want to follow you. I know you have some online training programs. How can folks learn from you, follow you? And
I would just go to my Instagram, Jason Mitchell _JMG. You can go to Jason Mitchell Coaching as well. There's a bunch of stuff there, from my book to the audio to your realtors taking my full course. So either jasonmitchellcoaching.com for coaching. You can go to thejasonmitchellgroup.com for more about JMG, the real estate holding company. And then of course my IG, Jason Mitchell _JMG.
Right on. So your main social channel is Instagram, IG.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So probably that's where I saw you. I didn't probably see you on Facebook then. All right, brother. Well, hey man, thanks for coming in here, giving all this value. I love the conversation. I love your passion. Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you too, Dave. We'll talk soon.
All right. If you guys got value, give us a like down below, and have a great weekend.